Hello, everybody. It is February 4th, 2024, after arguably the biggest Saturday of basketball we've had to this point in the season. Will, how are we feeling about this past week?
An awesome week, an awesome Saturday full of awesome games. Excited to get into it. As always, I'm Will. That's Jake. This is Statletics College Basketball. Let's go ahead and let's talk about some of the stuff that went down yesterday. You want to, Jake?
I'd love to. It was a great day. First game we got on, Houston at Kansas. Kansas didn't seem like they flinched at all. Houston came in there and they just beat them. Allen Fieldhouse was rocking yesterday. It didn't seem close until kind of the end of the second half, but not really. Hunter Dickinson was doing his thing. McCullough was doing his thing. But overall, I really like to see Johnny Furphy, number 10. He was just getting big shots after big shots, shooting really well down the stretch, and it seemed like everybody was making shots for Kansas. You got anything on this game?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Huge win for Kansas. You and I, we were both all over this one. Normally, when we agree on something, that means that the other outcome will likely come to fruition. But we nailed this one. Kansas by double digits. Needed a big win after struggling through the end of January, picking up a couple conference losses. Definitely a signature win to pick up over the Houston Cougars at home.
I've never, as long as we've been doing this, I haven't seen a team shoot almost 70% from the field. And Kansas did that on Saturday. That's just crazy. And another crazy stat is Kansas has only been an underdog twice at home against the top 10 opponent, and they've won both times. I don't know who made them underdogs, but I loved every second of it.
To be honest, I'm still not a believer in Kansas, though. This was a big win, and we saw this one coming, but I don't see them making a run in the tournament.
We'll get to that later. Next game, Auburn at Ole Miss. This is a game that I like to look at just because Will predicted it wrong. He liked Ole Miss in this one. I
was right at the beginning of the game. Ole Miss looked awesome to start out, and then
Ole Miss was murdering Auburn for anyone that didn't watch this game.
What did it get up to, like 15 or 16? Like
it was like a
10 minutes into the game.
10-point game.
Yeah.
And then they were winning at halftime, and then Auburn just exploded in the second half. They ended up beating them 91-77. Ole Miss just doesn't have the dudes yet with Chris Beard. They need a couple more years to get some more guys in. Auburn is a more matured team. They've been there before. Deep run in the tournament last year. I think they had their sights on Alabama this week. So, but yeah, Will got this one wrong. Will, you got anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, that happened to me twice this past week where I picked a team that I thought was going to win, and then they got out to an early lead, double digits, and then end up choking away said lead and leaving me defeated. The other one, Wisconsin at Nebraska. That one hurt a lot more. I tweeted that one out on our X account. I guess it's not Twitter anymore. But yeah, so I'm 2-2 on Statletics_bets. So maybe let me get going before you start tailing me. I'm not going to act like I'm the world's best gambler, but hey, we're doing our best. But Wisconsin was up 16 at halftime. And in their last 120 games with a 15-plus point lead at halftime, they were 120-0. And then they decided to choke away the lead. I think Nebraska started out the second half on like a 20-3 run or something crazy like that. And then the Cornhuskers ended up clutching up in overtime and getting the big win over top 10 Wisconsin Badgers.
That happened to me too. I tweeted out Kentucky and Wake last week, and both of them went into halftime with leads, and then both of them folded. They both ended up losing outright. So maybe we should look into first half money lines.
We're really good at guessing who's going to start out the game well, just not who's going to win the game.
Yeah, which is not what people want to hear.
Yeah.
Back on track. Duke at UNC. UNC didn't look like they were going to lose any part of this game. It was a little bit tight at first, but huge game from Armando Bacot. I think he had like 25 and 10. And also just a huge game from RJ Davis. He just continues to just put up 20 points after 20 points. I also liked what I saw out of Harrison Ingram. I mean, UNC just keeps on winning games. And Duke didn't play bad. I mean, Jeremy Roach had 20. McCain had 20. Filipowski had 22. It was just – UNC was just too much to handle. They were just the better team. And they were at home, which means a lot in this rivalry. But, yeah, did anything stick out to you, Will?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it. I think if Harrison Ingram continues to shoot it how he's been shooting it up to this point this year, then I believe he had a career high in threes on Saturday night. So I think he could be that X factor for them come March because, you know, they obviously have Armando Bacot and RJ Davis who have been exceptional this year. But yeah, glad to see the Tar Heels take care of business at home. It was a good game, fun game to watch. Looking forward to the rematch at Cameron Indoor.
Yeah, I love it. I love that rivalry at Cameron Indoor a lot more than whenever they're at UNC, but it's a treat every time we get them. Harrison Ingram is probably – he's up there with Caleb Love as probably the best transfers that panned out for their individual teams. Him coming over from Stanford, he was like the missing piece that they needed. And, I mean, I don't know if they're ever going to lose at this point. Iowa State played Baylor on Saturday. Baylor needed this win so bad. They've been playing terrible as of late, losing left and right. Iowa State's been on fire, but Baylor ended up getting the win. It was a close one, 70-68. I didn't get to catch this one with so much basketball on, in all honesty. But some stats that stuck out to me. Baylor shot above 50% from three, almost 50% from the field. I mean, shot it well at home. They needed to get this one if they were going to maintain top 25 status. Will, did you catch any of this game?
I wasn't able to watch this one either, but I still have faith in the Bears. They've just had two skids. I mean, they only have 5 losses this year. They lost to Michigan State and Duke back-to-back back in December, and then they went on a 3-game skid there in January. I think Coach Drew will be able to get their team ready for the tournament. Hopefully, even in the conference tournament, maybe they can make a run, get some momentum. But they'll obviously definitely be a tournament team and somebody to watch out for. Maybe a little Sweet 16 matchup, upset alert. I could see Baylor, who had very high preseason expectations and has played well up to this point in the year, but has been slightly disappointing. I could definitely see them being a spoiler in the tournament.
Yeah, and they got good scores with Ray J. Davis, and I mean, Missy has came on for him as of late. I know he only had 6 points yesterday, but I mean, he's been dominant in some of the wins that they've really needed down up to this point. So we'll see if they get back on track. Iowa State, we always talk about how they're a low-scoring, defensive-minded team, and giving up 70 on Saturday was not what they wanted, but generally, if they're scoring almost 70 points, I feel like they win. So,
I mean, the Big 12 is just a slugfest. It's like everybody just beats everybody
every week.
I feel like I can't get a feel on the pulse of how good these teams are because, like, when you look at the Big 10, Purdue's head and shoulders above everybody else. Big East, UConn. Obviously, Marquette in there as well, but UConn far and away. Pac-12, Arizona, head and shoulders above everybody else. SEC, there's a little bit more parity, but there's still a pretty big divide between the top and the bottom of the conference. I mean, ACC, it's Duke and North Carolina and then everybody else. In the Big 12, I feel like there's like 8 teams who could make a run in the conference tournament and go win it.
I think one thing we need to mention is it too early to put South Carolina in the top of the conference in the SEC.
I mean, I don't think so. Well, it's kind of one of those things where everybody's just been waiting for them to lose, and they're just not. I mean, since
They
January
refuse.
20th, they've won 5 straight, beating Kentucky and Tennessee and Knoxville. I mean, they got other wins against Missouri, Arkansas, and Georgia, which obviously aren't impressive, but I mean, 2 of those were also on the road. So, I mean, they only have 3 losses on the year, all to good teams: Clemson, Bama, and Georgia. I don't see why. I don't have anything to like say against them. You know, they've been very impressive, and they just continue to put together wins, and they're fun to watch.
I think they're a prime example of building a team the right way through the transfer portal. You see a lot of teams take a lot of transfers and not do very well. But they've taken a lot of their guys out of the transfer portal, and it seems like they meshed so well. And they play such good, solid defense, team defense. I think they rate last in the NCAA for pace of play, but it's just because their defense is so good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to see them more in conference play. I mean, I know we only have like 8 games left, but at this point, they've done enough to be in the top 25. Honestly, they've done enough to be in the top 15, in my opinion, even this past week.
I agree. I will say something interesting. I'm looking at their KenPom page right now. They're 42nd in the KenPom rankings, which is much higher than I expected. I know obviously there's quite often a big difference between the AP poll and the KenPom poll, but just based on their performance, I would have expected them to be higher. So I just think that's a little curious. I wonder where the discrepancy is there, because they're definitely going to be ranked. I think they should be top 15, potentially top 10. So excited to see what tomorrow's AP poll shows.
Me too. In the SEC, and this is a game I didn't want to talk about. Tennessee at Kentucky. Famously last week, as a Tennessee fan, I picked Kentucky. Will pick Tennessee. I just didn't see it. Tennessee haven't been moving the ball very well. Lost to South Carolina last week. It looked like Connect was our only offensive outlet, and boy, was I wrong. Tennessee got basically all of their starters in double figures and had one of the best offensive output games that I've seen under Rick Barnes. I mean, that was impressive to watch. I think Connect finished with like 10 to 15, which was brutal. I had them over in prize picks, but the rest of the team.
Hey, Jake, what did I tell you when you sent that prize picks?
You said it was too much. And I thought, I mean, it was.
And who did I say was going to have a good game?
Didn't you say Josiah or
Triple J, baby. Josiah Jordan James. Guess how many points he had, Jake?
Probably like 25. He would have covered DK's line.
26. Yeah, I mean, Zakai Ziegler and Triple J, Josiah Jordan James combined for 52. The Vols put up 103 points in Rupp Arena. Rick Barnes owns John Calipari. Rick Barnes owns Rupp Arena. The Vols own the Kentucky Wildcats in every sport, and I love it. This was the most fun I had watching a basketball game in years, because, I mean, Kentucky was fun too. Rob Dillingham had 30-something. Like, they scored 92 points. Like, it wasn't just an absolute blowout, even though the Vols scored in triple digits. Honestly, probably a lot to watch in the film room for Tennessee defensively. But yeah, just a really fun game to watch. And the narrative of Rick Barnes going in, beating top 10 Kentucky teams on the road, lives another day.
It's honestly, I'm so dumb for picking Tennessee to lose at Kentucky after we've done that the past couple of years where we win at Kentucky and then we lose at home. And I don't want that to happen, but it sure seems like we're going to stay on that trend. Rob Dillingham was nuts though on Saturday. He was virtually unstoppable. Couldn't miss from 3. Could do whatever he want, and it's just a bad matchup whenever Connect switches on him. Connect's defense is just not good enough to stop Rob. But Kentucky will be fine moving forward. They didn't have DJ Wagner and they didn't have Edwards, one of their backups off the bench. So once they get those guys back, I think that they'll be back to
We also had a little love story. I don't know. Did you see that on Twitter?
no.
Our guy Toby Awaka. Did you see when he and Bradshaw got into a little pushing match?
Yeah.
It seemed like Bradshaw might have given him a little kiss during that scuffle. I saw the slow mo video of it, and because Toby never really gets upset, he's very mild mannered. Obviously, plays really hard, but he doesn't really show emotions that often. And this was like the maddest anybody had ever seen him. And so people went back and watched the video, and it really looks like Aaron Bradshaw, like when they're in each other's faces, like literally like kisses him. It's pretty funny. But yeah, we got to see some emotion out of Tobe, which was fun. But yeah, apparently he like started a book club for the Vols players, like very
Okay.
yeah, like calm, collected person. I mean, plays very aggressively. Like in no way am I trying to say he's soft, because he's not. He's probably the guy on our team who plays the hardest, playing defense and going after rebounds, both offensively and defensively. But that was the first we had seen of him, getting really fired up like that, and so seeing why was really funny.
He's hanging out with too many Arkansas players.
Hey, let's go ahead and we should touch on that, because that was probably the most interesting story from this week in college basketball, was the alleged love triangle of the three Arkansas players, where one of them transferred, and then it came out that it was because of some relations between players. We do believe that has been ruled as not true, so we wanted to go ahead and get on the record and try to shut that rumor down. I don't really know where it came from. We just know a bunch of the Arkansas players have been joking about it, and some insider sources have just been like, yeah, that's just blatantly not true. Someone just made it up. But definitely a funny scenario. Got some laughs. And, glad to hear it's not true. So that way that team still has a chance to move forward this year, even though they've struggled quite a bit up to this point.
So I read online that it originated on like fan message boards like SEC South or something like that.
Shocker.
And just took a life of its own. People just kind of ran with it once one of the players left the program, and it was just people just started speculating after they started losing. They didn't seem like they had any camaraderie within the team. But I will say Brazil did post something funny on his story where he was signaling a triangle to the camera, and he posted it on his Instagram, signaling, like, acknowledging the alleged love triangle. I don't think that it's true. I think it is a good opportunity for Arkansas to like use this as fuel, kind of band together. See, like, people are making fun of us and drawing all these speculations. We've just been playing that. So if they want to have these rumors to stop, maybe they should play better.
Yeah,
I mean, they have a lot of room for growth. They have a lot of room for improvement. They can't do much worse.
They got absolutely destroyed by LSU on Saturday. It was at LSU, but I saw a clip of one of their players like really being unhappy with Coach Eric Musselman. So it seems like the Arkansas locker room has much bigger fish to fry than the rumors of the fake rumors of an alleged love triangle. So yeah, I doubt they're too worried about it, and I could see where you're coming from with hey, maybe this is something they could rally behind, but at the same time, I also just kind of feel like they're like, I don't know.
They have to cling on to something because they are so bad and so.
I guess really they couldn't make the tournament even if they would. I mean, they could win the SEC tournament. Would that be the only way they get in?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, their record in conference play is abysmal.
I feel like that's like a driving force for a lot of these bubble teams is, every single game matters if we want to have a chance to get in the tournament. And I feel like Arkansas doesn't really have that motivation anymore. So it's been bad to this point in the season, and it's gotten even worse since conference play has started. I'm hoping they can figure it out, but signs are pointing the other direction.
Interesting rumor I heard yesterday, actually. I think we were talking about Arkansas last night, me, you, and a couple other guys, but I've heard that Musselman wants to take the UCLA job, and UCLA wants their current coach gone.
Mick Cronin, is he UCLA's coach still?
Something like that. UCLA has been bad, and I think a lot of it has to do with
it's
they
still
have a
Mick
good
Cronin.
core of players with Jamie, or I can't even, Jacquez Jr.
Jaime Jaquez.
Yeah, Jaime
Yeah.
Jaquez Jr. And
He's really good, by the way, like for the Heat.
so
I love
good.
watching him play.
But
yeah.
I think it kind of proves that their coach isn't very good. They just had a good, solid core of guys. So I think Musselman kind of wants out of Arkansas. Maybe he wants to go to UCLA. UCLA wants to get rid of their coach, especially after this season, all he's had to deal with.
Yeah.
I digress. But
I think that'd be a good fit. I think Coach Musselman is a great coach. Obviously, he's done some awesome stuff in his tenure at Auburn, at Arkansas. Whatever is going on this year, I may or may not have to do with Coach Musselman, but I mean, he's proven himself as a good coach, and hopefully he'll get back on track whether or not it's at Arkansas.
Well, we'll see. Back on track. Purdue played at Wisconsin today. This was a highly anticipated game, 2 against 6. Wisconsin has been steadily moving along through the Big Ten, just beating up on everybody, beating up on teams they should beat.
Except for Nebraska.
They haven't really been tested. They haven't really been tested by a quality opponent, and Nebraska was such a ratty line. Well, come on. But Purdue goes in there and takes care of business. Wisconsin shot terrible today, 70% from 3. Wisconsin out-rebounded them by like 15. Did you catch this game? I was unable to due to some plans.
I had a men's league basketball game this afternoon, but pregame and at halftime, and then while I wasn't in the game, I was watching it on my phone because I bet on Wisconsin again. Really smart, right? Purdue jumped out to like an early, I think, 6-point lead, and then I took Wisconsin live. It was like plus 4.5, I think. And then Wisconsin was only down 2 at halftime. And then at the end of the game, I did catch the very end. There was maybe like 2 minutes left, I think. And Purdue had the lead by like 2. And they just dumped it into Zach Edey, and he did the 2-dribble, shoot it over the defender, and it went in. And then Wisconsin went down, missed a shot, and then Purdue entered it into Zach Edey again, and they hacked him, and then he made 2 free throws. I mean, just at the end of the game, having him, especially when they're already in the bonus, because now he can make free throws. So, like, you can't just hack him immediately. Having that option, just be like, everybody get out of the way. This is our best option to get points, whether or not he gets fouled. Just throw it to him and get out of the way. I mean, it's the value of it can't be understated.
He's so good. Purdue moves on.
It just kind of
are separating themselves.
It really sucks. It sucks to watch.
Yeah, especially when you're betting against it.
Like,
Purdue, UConn, and UNC have separated themselves from the field, though, I believe.
Purdue, UConn, and North Carolina? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
For sure. Maybe. I would maybe say North Carolina and UConn. Purdue and UConn have separated themselves more than North Carolina has. I mean, obviously North Carolina looks far and away the best team in the ACC, but I mean, dropped that game to Georgia Tech this past week. I feel like that was a step in the wrong direction for them, and Purdue and UConn are just steamrolling everybody. So I'd say
True.
Tier 1A is Purdue and UConn, and then Tier 1B would be the North Carolinas. Maybe even throw the Tennessee in there at this point.
Biased right now.
I mean,
are we all good with the recap from last week?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yep.
A new segment that me and Will are doing. Biggest winners and losers from the past basketball week. This was a little bit hard earlier in the year just because conference play brings out probably the best of everybody and the worst of everybody. So now that we have that, one of my biggest winners for the week was the Ole Miss floor cleaner. Will, did you see the clip of Ole Miss floor cleaner against Mississippi State?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
So Ole Miss's floor cleaner, something happened where a bunch of guys dove on the floor, made the floor pretty sweaty. So he comes out there and starts scrubbing down the floor as hard as he can. He's running around and immediately starts hyping up the crowd after, throwing his hands in the air, just screaming at them. And the announcers, they weren't even going to the commercial. They were just showing it to national TV, and the crowd was going nuts. They were eating it up. Ole Miss ended up winning, and they interviewed the guy after the game, and it was electric. That is the epitome of college basketball. If you guys haven't seen the video, go look it up online. It is probably one of the best clips I've ever seen.
Let me ask you, Jake.
Yeah.
Couple things. So, was the vibe similar to when a walk-on gets in at the end of the game? Maybe a coach's son walk-on, fifth-year senior, has never scored, gets a three in the corner, it goes in, the arena erupts for the home team to go up by 33. Was it similar to that?
No. It felt like whenever you have a good halftime show and the crowd gets really into it.
Yeah.
Imagine that was like during a TV timeout. And
the
crowd was just going nuts.
Well, my favorite halftime show of this weekend was North Carolina and Duke. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
There was a baby race. It was like a bunch of babies who couldn't walk yet. They were probably less than a year old, and they set up a starting line and a finish line, probably 15 feet apart, and the dads put the babies down, and then they said go, and then the moms were trying to get the babies to crawl to them, and only one of the babies crawled across, and the baby went to the wrong mom.
Was it the length of the floor, or was it a half court?
No, it was literally only 15 feet. The babies didn't have to go far at all, but most of them were not interested. It was pretty funny.
Child abuse. Length of the floor. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, that would have been bad. No, it was definitely a reasonable distance.
Another winner, top 5 basketball teams, minus Houston. Seemed like all of the better teams took care of business on Saturday, and they did. UConn, Purdue, and UNC all won Saturday/Sunday. Houston lost to a formidable Kansas team. So, I mean, if you take the entirety of the week, you can argue a little bit. Tennessee lost during the week.
So did Carolina. I would say, but the Carolina and Tennessee losing earlier in the week made their wins on Saturday that much bigger. North Carolina dropped a game to Georgia Tech that they shouldn't have lost. It was on the road, but, they should still take care of business against Georgia Tech.
9-point
Tennessee lost at home against South Carolina, and they were 15-point favorites. So,
yeah.
Both of the wins on Saturday against their rivals, North Carolina at home, Tennessee on the road, huge wins for two really good teams.
On to the biggest losers. We already touched on this, but the Arkansas love triangle is just terrible PR for your Breakers. I mean, there's just no worse PR for your basketball team.
Yeah, and
your sad story.
Yeah,
even if it's false, I think that it harms It harms them more than what people kind of consider as far as recruiting, donors, fundraising. Like that's just something you don't want to hear out of the team that you're potentially giving money to or committing to. Even
It's
though
false
you think it's
rumors.
false,
Yeah,
but
it's not true. So like it sucks, but I agree with you that it definitely could impact recruiting, which could be one of probably multiple reasons that Coach Musselman is wanting out of Fayetteville. Um, but yeah, glad to hear it's not true, and now Arkansas has a giant pile of other issues to deal with.
yeah. Rick Pitino, another loser, lost one out of his last six. Couldn't knock off UConn or Marquette at home, and both of those were circled by a lot of different sharks on Twitter. That is they wanted they had St. John's winning against UConn and Marquette. Both of those lines were extremely small for how bad St. John's been. But is Rick Pitino washed?
I mean, the Marquette game was really close. They lost by one. Um, the Connecticut game, I mean, UConn is just, I think, head and shoulders above everybody else in the Big East. So, yeah, you definitely don't want to lose by double digits at home, but you kind of just got to tip your cap. And UConn was out there big man, too. I don't want to say his name wrong. Alex Caravan, is that how you say it?
No. What is his name?
Either way.
No, Klingon.
Huh?
Oh, wait. Caravan is their starter. Klingden or whatever is like their backup.
Yeah, I don't think Alex Caravan played on Saturday. I think he's hurt. So yeah, so UConn win by double digits was definitely a big win. But yeah, I mean, I would say the more concerning loss this week for St. John's was they lost by double digits at Xavier. So I know Xavier is, definitely not bad. They've had a decent year, but if we're expecting St. John's to be in this upper class of the Big East, then they need to take care of business. They've lost 5 out of their last 6, so it's definitely not looking good for Coach Pitino.
Well, I love how social media likes to build Coach Pitino up. They want to get him into the tournament. They love having his personality around, and he was a great coach, still is, but they're just not there yet. St. John's is pieced together by transfers, and they're not consistent. Not a good team. Also, another loser. I think you did a little bit more research into this one. Armando Bacot.
Yeah, so there was a play where Mondo was guarding Kyle Filipowski, and Armando admitted that he was in Kyle Filipowski's cylinder, but there was contact with Armando's mouth, and he actually chipped five of his teeth. When they asked him about it in the postgame presser, he was like, yeah, honestly, like, he didn't do anything wrong. I probably fouled him, and they didn't call it. So he was a great sport about it. He was like, yeah, it definitely hurts, but Kyle didn't do anything wrong. So while he was definitely in some pain and probably some dental work, he was able to keep his composure and didn't he wasn't a mean guy about it. I feel like he could have handled it a lot differently, and he handled it the right way.
The last loser, Kentucky's home dominance coming to an end. They've lost back-to-back home games without DJ Wagner and Edwards. Now they have Gonzaga coming in this week. Are you concerned about Kentucky at home? Do you like them better on the road versus at home? And how are you feeling overall about Rupp Arena on its decline?
I mean, did you see John Calipari refuse to talk to the media after the game?
No.
Yeah,
He didn't talk to him at all?
No, and old boy Kentucky Sports Radio, what's his name? Matt Jones, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. He was not too pleased with Coach Calipari, and I feel like he's pretty reflective of Big Blue Nation. I feel like their fans are more worried about how they are going to get him out of his lifetime contract, rather than worried about the home games. I mean, Kentucky's going to be a tournament team. Seeding will obviously be different, but hopefully they can figure out their struggles at home. But I still think they could piece it all together and make a run in March. Just need to see more out of Coach Calipari.
All right. Wraps up biggest winners and losers. Looking ahead, and we'll go through these a little bit more quick than usual. Texas Tech plays at Baylor this week. Right now, I think our model has Baylor favored by about 5 points. Baylor just took it. Texas Tech just beat BYU and Oklahoma last week. Baylor just beat Iowa State. So they're both coming off pretty big wins. The BYU win and the Oklahoma win last week was huge for Texas Tech. They kind of solidified themselves in the middle of the Big 12 conference in-season championship. What's your pick on this game?
Yeah, I mean, two good teams, both playing well. Like I said earlier, I don't think I have my finger on the pulse of the Big 12 as well as I would like to. So give me the home team, give me the Baylor Bears.
I mean, I tend to agree. I have no clue how to predict Baylor this year. I mean, they went on a 3-game skid last week and then turn around and they beat Iowa State, who has had huge wins recently against Kansas and other teams. I mean, I guess I'll go with Baylor. The home team generally seems to win in these types of scenario, and I think if it's 5 or less, I think Baylor ends up covering too. Next game, BYU at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's coming off 2 losses to Texas Tech and Texas last week. Heartbreaking because I bet on them. BYU is coming off 2 pretty big wins. Personally here, I like Oklahoma. I think that they're going to be a little bit more inspired. Starting off the year so hot, and then now they've gotten the Big 12 and they struggled a little bit, especially losing up to Texas last week. That was kind of a heartbreaker. And then being so close to Texas Tech too. I mean, those are 2 rivalry games that you don't want to lose. But I think the home team here matters, and if it's anything less than 2, then I think they cover too.
Yeah, we're gonna be opposed on this one. I like the BYU Cougars. Not really exactly sure why. I mean, Oklahoma's coming off a loss to Central Florida. BYU coming off 2 big wins. BYU is still a top 10 KenPom team. Not sure exactly what he loves so much about them, but I'm going to go with it because he's a lot smarter than I am. So give me BYU to win outright.
Oh, I hate that. You're telling me that Oklahoma comes off of 2 losses and they're going to go lose a 3rd? I mean, Baylor did it, but what are the odds that Oklahoma does?
I mean, St. John's did it. I think BYU is a better team.
That's a terrible pick, but we'll see. I hate that pick. Next game, Alabama at Auburn. I cannot wait for Wednesday night. Wednesday night's going to be huge. At Auburn after they lost to Alabama on Alabama's home court. Hopefully the lights function this time. If you guys watched the last matchup, they got delayed by like 15 to 30 minutes because the lights weren't working in Alabama. They have poverty university. Anyways, Auburn is projected by our model to win by 4 at this point. I tend to agree. I think they're the better team, and they're at home. Although 4 seems a bit steep in a rivalry game, I still think Auburn ends up covering that number if it is 4 or tighter. Will, you got any feel in this? You were on Alabama last time.
Yeah, I think this is a tough one. Because obviously 2 really good teams, big rivals, similar to North Carolina, Duke, Tennessee, Kentucky. You kind of expect them to split and the home team to win each game. Half of that prophecy has already been fulfilled in this particular rivalry. But I don't know, dude. Bama has just been scoring at a very high rate, and obviously Auburn can as well. But I feel like this one could go either way. Obviously, I think Auburn will be favored by 3 to 5 points. So I'll probably take Bama to cover, but Auburn to win. I think this is going to be a really close one.
Threading the needle. Alabama, one game they got swept under the rug a little bit. They beat Mississippi State, who's been a very good team, very solid. They beat them 99-67 on Saturday, and that's just something you don't see Mississippi State giving up 99 points in a basketball game. They are just – that loss to Tennessee kind of woke them up. They're on a 3-game winning streak right now. 4, actually. Next game, TCU at Iowa State. Iowa State lost to Baylor Saturday, and TCU just lost to Texas. Both of these teams need it. Our model says that Iowa State will be favored by 5. Iowa State is a very good team. TCU has their ups and downs. They've played well this whole year. I have no feel in this game. If I were to choose it, I would choose Iowa State just because I think that they're a better basketball team. 5 is a big number, though.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to agree with you on this one. Both these teams are good. Houston had back-to-back losses to TCU and Iowa State. They both are good basketball teams. Just two of those solid Big 12 teams I was talking about that it just feels like, could win 4 or 5 games in a row at any point. So yeah, I'll probably stick with the home team, the Iowa State Cyclones, and hopefully that defense will be very stifling on their home court.
Yeah. Lastly, Baylor at Kansas. Right now, our model has Kansas favored by 3.5, with Baylor coming to town. Both teams are coming off of big wins, but Kansas has been rolling a little bit more than Baylor lately. Baylor had a pretty rough 3-game skid, and they're pretty far back in the Big 12 standings right now. Personally, I think that if it's after seeing Allen Fieldhouse rocking like it was on Saturday, I have no doubt that Kansas is going to come out fired up with their fans inspired after their big win against Houston. I'm going to stick with Kansas on this one, especially if it's under 4.
Yeah, I think I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I think Baylor's about to find their stride, get going, and a win at Kansas could really turn their whole season around. I think Coach Drew is going to have his guys inspired, and excited to watch this game. It's going to be really fun. Honestly, I could see it going either way, but just for the fun of it, I'll probably end up betting on Baylor, because that's the outcome that I hope happens. And I really don't believe in Kansas. I know you love Kansas. I just don't really see it.
You agree with Kim Palm that Kansas is overrated. I don't think so. But
they've got some dudes, but they're just so inconsistent.
Very inconsistent. All right, that wraps up our look ahead. Another new segment we're looking into is Upset Alert, and we'll kind of get through these a little bit quicker too. Right now, Iowa State's going to Texas this week. The model has Texas at -6 or minus 1.6. I think that Texas ends up winning outright this week. Iowa State coming off a big loss. They're going to be drained. Texas has been playing great basketball. They're coming through a stretch where they played. This is going to be their 5th game against a ranked opponent in a row. And they've won. It looks like they've won 2 out of the 4. 2 out of the past 4 out of the top 25 teams. They beat Oklahoma and they beat TCU. I think that they'll be ready to go on Tuesday, and I think Texas gets the win here against Iowa State. Partly the reason why I think Iowa State ends up covering on Saturday against TCU.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good pick. Honestly, I think probably, obviously Iowa State is ranked higher than Texas, but I think Texas will probably be favored in this game, just being the home team. If that's the case, I'll probably fade you on this as it's one of your upset alert segments, and I will probably take the Cyclones to bounce back with 2 big wins this week over Texas and TCU.
Another upset that I think is going to happen, Creighton at Providence. Obviously, Providence lost their best player earlier in the year, but they have had no shortage of close games and games that they've won where they probably shouldn't have. I think Providence ends up winning outright on Saturday too. Actually, I don't know if it's Saturday. Providence is a great team though. In the Big East, home court advantage matters so much. It's a pick 'em on the model. Well, you think Providence has a chance?
Yeah, they've got a big game today against Villanova. Also on the road, coming off the loss at UConn. I will say that I think the Villanova game will have a big impact on how inspired the Friars, that's their mascot, right? The Providence Friars. How inspired they play against Creighton. I think if they lose today at Villanova, which is pretty likely, then they'll come in and be ready to take on the Creighton Blue Jays. But I think if they get a big win at Villanova today, maybe they might not have as much pep in their steps. So my answer for this game in particular depends on the intermediate game.
That's fair. Next, I know some people won't like me for saying this, but I think UNC loses a game this week. They play Miami and Clemson. They have Clemson at home. They go to Miami on Saturday. Miami's a better team than their record says they are, but Clemson, I think they're also a better team than their record says they are. I think both of those teams are dangerous teams to play, especially back to back after you're playing Duke. High emotions game. Which one do you think that beats UNC if you do think either one of them loses?
Yeah, I mean, they're riding high right now, North Carolina, after the just great win over Duke. I mean, it wasn't a blowout, but they just played really well. And yeah, I struggle to see North Carolina beating them at home, or Clemson beating them at home. I feel like they match up really well with North Carolina, with Armando taking care of PJ Hall. But yeah, so I think if they lose one of these 2 games, it'll definitely be Miami. And I agree with you that North Carolina should be on the upset alert for the Miami game. That one will be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, and it also can't be overlooked. Clemson almost knocked off Duke at Duke, and they were right there. But Clemson's been right there in a lot of games, and they can't seem to seal the deal. On Saturday, they lost in a heartbreaker, horrible decision at the very end, shooting a 3 down 1 for a buzzer beater attempt. But I mean, Clemson's got a good team, and they're a lot better than how they've been playing recently. Last team on upset alert, and this pains me to say it. It is the Tennessee Volunteers taking on the Texas A&M Aggies on Saturday. It's a night game, 8 p.m. on Saturday at Texas A&M. And the model actually has Texas A&M favored, barely, by 0.1. But we classify that as a pick 'em. I think Tennessee actually goes and gets it done on Saturday. I think Texas A&M is. I think they're good, but they haven't been playing up to par. And Tennessee, if they can continue to play good team basketball, I know they struggle on the road historically, but they prove that they can play on the road against Kentucky. I think they go and get a win on Saturday.
Yeah, I think Tennessee proved something very important on Saturday. If that Dalton Connect has an off night scoring, they can get the offensive production elsewhere. If Josiah Jordan-James can continue to play how he did this past weekend, the Vols are going to be very tough to beat. So yeah, I'm assuming Vegas will also have this game very close, similar to the model. I am probably going to be scared to bet it, but if I had to lean one way, I'm probably going to stick with the Vols.
Great. Yeah, I think those 4 teams have a pretty good chance of losing this next week, and that should shake things up. And I'm sure there's some that we didn't mention that'll end up losing as well.
For sure.
Finishing it off, Final Four predictions.
We're in
We were
February.
doing
1 month away.
We were doing conference champion predictions, but those seem a little bit more solidified. So this is a little bit more fun. Will, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't go too crazy with this. I think Purdue. I don't know how you don't put Purdue and UConn in your Final Four right now. I think they're the 2 best teams in the country. They have clear paths to winning their conferences and being 1 seeds. UConn, obviously, last year proved they can get it done in March. Coach Dan Hurley is one of, if not the best coach in the country. All 5 of their starters score in double figures. They get production everywhere. I feel like they're the most complete team in basketball right now. And then with Purdue, you have the story of losing to their 116 matchup last year. The second time it's ever happened. The first time it happened was Virginia, and they went on to win the national championship next year. So I don't know, maybe that could be an indicator of it happening again. But yeah, just with how far along some of their guards have come, along with Zach Edey's continued dominance, I just think having such a consistent, reliable, and productive option is really, really tough to stop. And I feel like I would just be dumb leaving them out. Then my other 2 are a little bit more fun. I have the Vols. I think this is the year Coach Barnes leads Tennessee to their first Final Four. Just having Dog Connect, being able to score at such a high clip, and they play so hard on defense. They rebound. They have multiple options. I just think they're also a very complete team and very well coached. But then for my 4th team, I'm gonna predict that the Big East is gonna have 2 representatives in the Final Four, which I hated leaving the Big 12 out, but none of the Big 12 teams stuck out to me as like, I think they're going to make a run in March. I mean, Houston's obviously good, but the teams who really rely on defense and occasionally don't have the offensive production that they would like, I don't trust as much in the tournament. And then Kansas, I've talked a lot about how I don't really trust them. And Marquette has just been really impressive. They don't really have any bad losses, which I think is very important. They take care of business against teams they should beat. Like, their losses are to Purdue, Wisconsin, at Providence, at Seton Hall, and then they did drop one at home against Butler, but since then they've won 6 straight. I think they're getting hot at the right time. I think they're very well coached, and I think they definitely have a shot at making it to the Final Four.
I'll be honest, I hate the UConn pick, but I'll get into why in a second.
The best team in the country? I hate the best team in the country pick.
My Final Four is Purdue, UNC, Arizona, and Kentucky, and I'll go through it. Purdue, I completely agree with you. They have the bounce back year of 1-16 last year, and then turn around, and they've just taken care of business every single time they touch the floor. They seem like they've been in like a military camp. It's just all business. Every single time they play, they just expect to win, and they expect nothing less than a natty. I don't think UConn makes the Final Four just because of how insanely difficult it is to do it back to back. I understand they're playing well. They've played decent competition to bad competition. I mean, I know that the Big East is very hard. Winning on the road is very difficult on the Big East, but they haven't had the signature wins like UNC has.
Oh yeah, Arizona has a bunch of signature wins. Yeah,
I'll get into that. I think the UConn back-to-back in the Final Four will be extremely unlikely, and they scream they're a team that screams that they're going to get put out earlier than they should. To me, at least. Arizona
says the Arizona and Kentucky guy.
I have those in. So in March, I think that it is your teams are so dependent on guard play in March. And something that you can't argue is how well Kentucky and Arizona have just a plethora of guards that can score at any level. Caleb Love has proved that if he gets hot in March, then I mean he's almost unstoppable whenever he gets hot. With UNC, they were crushing teams that they should have lost to or they would have lost to a month ago. I like where they're both at right now. As crazy as that seems, I don't like it when teams are hot at this point, early February, late January, because it seems like they aren't playing their best basketball in March. I'm a big fan of teams that are kind of trending down during this time of the year, and then at the end of February, they end up picking up some wins, picking up some momentum, and going to the tournament with high expectations for how far they're going to get. I love Arizona. I think they have all the pieces if they can just put them together. They have such a talented team, and Kentucky does as well. They have such a talented team, especially with guards like DJ Wagner. That he's their third best player, and he was a consensus 5-star number one recruit in the nation. I mean, they have so many guys, and they're missing the plot right now with injury, right? But I think that it would be a little bit different if they had those guys.
I will just say, I hear what you're saying about guard play in the tournament, and I agree with you. Kentucky, their best guard is Antonio Reeves, and then the three after that are all true freshmen. They're all awesome, but they're true freshmen. And I feel like it's been proven time and time again that you can't trust true freshmen in the NCAA tournament. No matter how talented they are, like I'm not trying to hate on them. It's Wagner, who you mentioned, and Dillingham and Shepard, and they're all great. They've played fantastic to this point in the year. I trust Antonio Reeves. He's the only competition for Dalton Connect for SEC Player of the Year, but I don't know. The freshmen scare me.
Rob Dillingham is, in my mind, not a freshman. He is so good, and he doesn't seem like he makes that many mistakes. He takes some bad shots every now and then, but it doesn't really seem like he is out of place or playing timid or scared. He just seems like he is attacking at all times. He's so quick, so hard to guard, and they shoot it so well. I love teams that can get hot at a moment's notice in March because that stuff sways games that are only decided by a possession or two. Is if one team is hot, they're making a couple shots that they shouldn't make. Kentucky's fully capable of that, and so is Arizona. UNC and Purdue are a little bit more stable with their big men, but for teams that can go on a run and can beat anybody, I think Kentucky and Arizona are at the top of the list. All right. I think that wraps us up for tonight. Check us out on Statletics Bets.
Statletics_bets. Don't forget the underscore on X, Twitter.
And we will see you guys next week.